The next speaker is by the name of Dr. Gerard Puccio. He's a department chair and professor at the International Center of Studies in Creativity at Buffalo State. Gerard has written a number of articles and books, the latest of being Creative Leadership, Skills that Drive Change. And I think we can all relate to some of those needs that we have in our own business. Gerard has delivered workshops around the world in all different regions, and I think has a bit of an understanding about the different styles and different challenges we have in the different cultures, and has agreed to graciously join us in Prague today. Please give Gerard a great Synovate welcome.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate the energy. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank Gavin for the introduction and a fellow Synovator, Sharon Walsh, who is a graduate student in the department that I direct at this International Center for Studies in Creativity. It was Sharon who introduced me to Synovate, and she's the reason why I'm here. And I believe Sharon's sitting somewhere over here. She's waving her hand. So thank you, Sharon. Well, how lucky am I to get you at 3:30 in the afternoon after you've traveled some distance to come here. I hope that the jet lag is long gone and behind you. So what am I about this afternoon? What are my goals? As Gavin described, the title of the session is Creative Thinking, a Driver to Integration and Innovation. So in the 2 hours that I have with you, what I'd like to do is distill from our graduate program, which is the world's only Master of Science degree in Creativity and Change Leadership, to draw from that curriculum a few key concepts that can be tied into integration and innovation. More and more, there are reports that are coming out from consulting firms and government agencies that underscore, as we move into this millennium, that a key workplace skill is creative thinking. And so my desire this afternoon is to share some principles around how you can intentionally promote creative thinking. Now, some of you may be wondering, why on earth would the International Center for Studies in Creativity be in Buffalo, New York? Now that's gone through your head or not, if anyone's here ever been to Buffalo, sort of jokingly, I like to think of Buffalo as the place where ideas come to die. Actually, it's a wonderful place to live. There is a reason. There's a visionary who was the founder of our program. Our program was founded in 1967. I've been there since 1990. Prior to joining the faculty, I did my Ph.D. at the University of Manchester. Spent a lovely 2 years in Manchester. There's a person who was a visionary who founded our program. His name was Alex Osborne, a very famous New Yorker. Anyone here ever heard of Alex Osborne? Raise your hand if you have. A very famous New Yorker. Okay, Alex Osborne wrote a book back in 1953. New York Times bestseller list, came out in 3 editions, translated into half a dozen different languages. The book is called Applied Imagination. So this very famous Western New Yorker wrote a very famous book called Applied Imagination. How many of you have heard of Applied Imagination? Okay, well, in this book that this famous person wrote, he introduced a technique which I'm willing to bet everyone in here has heard of. The technique he introduced was brainstorming. How many of you ever heard of brainstorming? The word was even invoked today, earlier. Whew. Okay. Osborne, this visionary, was one of the founding partners of an advertising firm many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. Batten, Barton, Durstein, and Osborne, BBD&O. Osborne recognized in his profession that many people came to the workplace ill-prepared to engage in creative thinking. And it was his belief that you could train, that you could develop, that you can enhance this skill. And he proved that in his own workplace in the creation of his book, Applied Imagination, and in the introduction of the technique, brainstorming. So our department, in a sense, is living out his vision, which is to spread the word, to demonstrate to people that you can deliberately enhance creative thinking. And that's what I'll be sharing with you today, some of the techniques drawn from our graduate curriculum that this founder, Alex Osborne, helped to be the visionary that founded. Okay, so purpose of the speech, to expand the network within the organization. I have 2 hours to speak with you. I'm not going to speak at you. I'll be having you engaged in experiential activities. We know that adults learn best from hands-on activities. So there'll be some tasks that you'll be charged with working on at your tables to learn about one another, to learn about the effectiveness of integration and how to enhance integration, which is the second goal of the presentation, is to demonstrate how integration facilitates higher levels of performance. Third goal is to highlight the link between creativity and innovation. So what is creativity, and how does creative thinking drive innovation? Organizations aren't innovative, quite frankly, unless the individuals in the organization are creative. So we'll look at that important relationship. And then finally, I'll share with you some tools out of this problem-solving methodology that we teach in Buffalo called creative problem solving. So those are the goals for the presentation. Let me first talk a little bit about the presentation itself and listening. As I'm standing in front of you and presenting, we know some key things about listening. First of all, one of the things that we know is that roughly any given time, about 18% of you are actually listening to me. So what's happening with the rest of you? Well, 25% of you are somewhere else thinking about something that's quite pleasant. And I don't worry about you because you're having a good time anyhow. 57% of the time, a little more than half of the time, when you're listening to a presentation, you're doing something that's called in and out listening. So you tune in briefly to listen to the content of the presentation, and then your mind drifts somewhere else, like, gosh, I really have to get to my BlackBerry, or I have to check this message, or I'm working on this particular project, or I forgot to pass this message on to someone. So your mind drifts out and goes somewhere else. What I want to suggest to you, or first of all, what I want to describe to you is, why does that happen? Well, our minds are very powerful. We can comprehend up to 950 words a minute. I tend to speak fairly fast. Most of us, on average, can talk at about 150 words a minute. So that means our minds race ahead, which gives us the opportunity to process other things. So I want to suggest that as you're taking notes this afternoon and as you go through the conference, that you do what we call in and out note-taking. You have pads that were provided to you when you registered for the conference. You have notepads in front of you provided by the hotel. Take a line and draw it down the center of that pad. And on the left side, label that in. And on the right side, out. So we have in thoughts on the left side. That relates to the content of the presentation. So as I go through the PowerPoint presentation and I share some facts with you or tips about creative thinking, you can jot those on the inside. On the right side, I'd like you to keep track of your out thoughts. That includes connections. So let's say I share an idea with you and you thought of a way to perhaps use that on a project, or a way to use it in the office. So on the right side, you can keep track of your connections, ideas that are stimulated by the presentation, perhaps insights that you might get, and also any other miscellaneous thoughts, such as, oh, I forgot to pass this message on, or I need to check this fact, or I need to get back to so-and-so. By jotting it down, it allows your mind to then focus back in on the presentation. So I encourage you to try that out as we go through the remainder of this presentation and as we go forward into the remainder of the conference. Okay, as Gavin mentioned, I'm a professor at Buffalo State, which is the largest college campus within the State University of New York system. And as a professor, one of the things I'd like to do is to give tests. And in fact, I'm going to give you a test today. At your tables, and it should be located near the center of your table, you'll find a sheet that's labeled the cash register case. I'd like you to pull that out. Make sure that every person at the table has a copy of that case. It's a very brief 3 or 4 sentence case, and then it's followed by 10 questions. This will be a timed test. This is not a group test, so you'll be doing this individually. You'll need that worksheet in front of you, and you'll need a pen or pencil to write with. I'm going to give you 8 minutes to go through this. You'll read the case, and then you'll respond to the 10 questions. The 10 questions are multiple choice. T stands for true if the statement's true, F for false, and circle the question mark if you don't know. That's it for instructions. You have 8 minutes. Go.